I grew up in kind of a violent home that had a lot, well, it was a violent home, I suppose, and there was all this violent aggressiveness, you know, from my dad to my big brother, that sort of, as they, you know, I've worked with a lot of Marines, shit rolls downhill, and I was at the bottom of the hill, and so there was this sense of like, well, I should be able to stand up for myself more, or even if I did, not being able to physically overcome it was a real great source of shame. What does that bring up for you? How does that resonate? And how do you, I think maybe more importantly, how do you handle it?
Part of what I figured out was you had to compensate it then. I was an emotional guy. I whooped more than one person's ass while I was crying. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm emotional, but don't test me. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there was that kind of feeling of like, you better show that you're willing to fight and even willing to lose, but not willing to get punked.
I was taught by my father, if you have a conflict that you can't resolve with your words, then you use your hands. You use physicality. And in fact, when I was a kid, my dad used to give me and my brother boxing gloves. And he would tell us, if you think you're right, then you hit me.
I have definitely engaged in a ton of violence in my life, a ton. When I used to do a lot of armed robberies, I used to rob drug dealers. One of the big things you needed to do was be strong, be able to take a gun out and pistol whip the shit out of somebody. And honestly, I think there's masculinity to that.
I remember when I was in grade school, I'd gotten in a few schoolyard fights. And at a certain point, I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna get that guy. And a friend of mine was like, no, man, just be the bigger man. You don't need to fight him, just be the bigger man, just walk away. And that really resonated with me, and still does, you know, that I would be bigger than somebody by walking away. And like physically, I'm the smaller one.
Yeah.
And would get hurt in that situation. So naturally, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna, that's the deep choice on here.
Philosophy works for me.
I don't fight. I've been a pacifist ever since, and that's part of how I guess I define masculinity.
I remember being on the BQE once, and there was a car just kept trying to cut in front of me, and I was like, we're going 4 feet, and they start screaming at me, and I'm like, yo, chill the f out, and you know, whatever, trying to wave them off, and doors popped open. I was scared, and I started to roll up my window, and this guy grabbed my window as it was rolling up, and he just went, and it just shattered. And luckily, 4 cops going home from work were 4 cars over, and one of them got out of his car and just pointed them, showed his badge, pulled them over, and you know, I was sort of rescued. I got home, and I had to tell my brothers, my older brother and my stepbrother, who were fighters. And I was so ashamed of not getting out of that car, even though I would have gotten my ass whooped, no question. The repercussions of that shame, I'll put it to you this way, telling you guys the story right here at this table scares the shit out of me, because it makes me feel completely vulnerable, completely exposed, like I'm not tough. You see, that can happen, and someone can take that masculinity away from me or whatever. So when those moments happen, how do you make peace with those things that scare the shit out of you?
I've chosen to fight before. You feel terrible after that. Like you want to just like apologize. The people around you have to apologize to and like feel bad. Would I feel emasculated if I didn't fight someone? No, I've done that many times. And you actually feel way better than actually fighting.
I think this is what we've come down to, is that up until this point, for thousands of years, being a man and being aggressive and angry has served us as a race. And that's why we're stuck. That's why, because everything in our animal bodies tells us that being this way has worked since the beginning of time for us, but it's not going to continue to work anymore.
See, for me, you know, my father was physically abusive to us and to my mom. I mean, she's literally, you know, one of the reasons that I even live in the United States is that one night when my mom separated from my dad, he found her out at a club one night and just literally got so upset and took her on the beating of her life. And it was the next day that she decided that she was moving to America, blah, blah, and that's how I ended up. So for me, I always looked at violence, just didn't participate in it at all. And the one time in my life that I ever came to violence or even came close to it was this girl in high school. I don't know what her issue was. She was picking on me, had a crush on me, I don't know. But she was just like attacking me at the wrong moment. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was this one moment where I just got so upset at her and I responded and I started to go to raise my hand to her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like maybe, I think I was 14 years old. Mm. And she looked at me and she said, oh, is that what you're gonna do, Deshaun? is that what you're gonna do? And I was like, whoa, that almost happened. That like could have happened. And And that is like the last moment that's sort of like in any sort of tight situation, wherever the immediate violence impulse has ever come out of me. Yeah, it hasn't come out since.
It relaxes me to hear you say, my response is to never engage in that. You know, those things, those little things, hearing them from other men make me go, oh, okay, I'm okay, and still feel like a man, you know?
If I had a son, what would I teach him? I would teach him to be, you know, be able to handle himself a little bit, I guess, in situations, but also all aspects, no, not to make the mistakes I made, because I definitely, first thing I did was fight, and then fighting led to other crazy shit, and I wouldn't teach him that way. But I would teach him to just to love everybody and be cool about it, not to be like, it's not worth it being a hard ass. It didn't, at the end of the day, it didn't do me any good. I mean, I'm sitting here at 45 unemployed because I was a fucking hard ass my entire life. So, you know, it is what it is. So I would definitely teach him from my mistakes, if that makes any sense.
SoulPancake, subscribe!